So I'm Chris Sanders. I'm with Keller Williams Realty Downtown. Really not much of a realtor. I'm more of an investor for the last 10 years. Quick history on me is I started in Denver in '05. The market was in a downturn. So I started cold calling to get bank-owned listings, which we're not experiencing right now in this marketplace. But Cesar is, yep. So I started cold calling banks, trying to get some listings because the market was in a downturn. And so my first bank was Compass Bank. I'll make these stories quick. Compass Bank in Birmingham, Alabama. Ann Connors was the asset manager. I just cold called her through Google because we had worse technology 15 years ago. And Ann answered the phone and she's like, well, I've got 3 listings that have been sitting in Denver for 6 months. Can you go list them all? They're just sitting there vacant. So anyways, I took that first client on. First year, we did 68 transactions, which is pretty busy for a first year, not knowing anybody. I was only 26 years old. Following year, we did 219 deals because I got in with more banks. In the third year, we did 424 units in 1 year with about 40 different asset management bank-owned relationships. So I went from 0 to number 1 in the nation with Keller Williams Realty Downtown multiple times. I had deals on my desk in Mount Bello for 50, 60 grand every day. I had everybody calling me every day. Those people don't exist. Those are the players back then called Carl Megan Stoll, Travis Steffens, Jason and Hope Burns, who now run ClearSale or Home Trust. Those are the big players back then. They've kind of all migrated to other markets or other business. But what I did incorrectly or wasn't aware, I was only 28 years old then, is I should have been buying those as rentals. With Cesar, if we would have bought 10 rentals in Mount Bello for 60 grand, it'd be mostly paid off by now and be worth a lot of money. So, but I didn't know anything at that age. I was just an order taker. The banks were sending me stuff every day. So that's the quickest version of my history. Cesar has.
Hey, my name is Cesar Reyes. Also Cesar Reyes in Spanish. Chris calls me Caesar Salad, and sometimes he calls me Papi, and so I'm good with all that. But I got a little jealous because then I found out that every Latino that he talks to, he calls Papi as well. So at the end of the day, it's all good. So he tells me he cheats on me all the time. I'm like, that's fine. Anyways, my history starts. I got licensed in 1998, just regular retail real estate agent working with buyers, and my dream was always to become a listing agent. I always wanted to become a listing agent. I always felt like that was where I wanted to be because I wanted to not work weekends. So I was always working towards becoming a listing agent. And now I focus on listings, off markets, cash deals. How I got involved in all this was I started doing short sales back in like 2001, like right after 9/11, things kind of slowed down for a little bit. And so I started doing a lot of short sale transactions and a little complicated. I'm not going to get too much into it, but basically it's a lot more paperwork than a regular listing. You're constantly calling the banks. You're working with the loss mitigation department. And I was the type of person that I'd go play basketball at 6 a.m, take a shower at the gym. I'd be at the office 7:30, had files like this stacked up, and I would just be calling all the banks left and right, till about like 11 o'clock in the morning because I knew most of the banks were in the East Coast. So if I started calling them after 10 or 11 o'clock, it wouldn't get handled till the next day. I understood the process. So basically what happened is I knew how the whole short sale process started working. I understood how to stop a foreclosure. I understood that a lot of people were going through distress. I'd have a lot of people coming to my office telling me, hey, I heard that you can help me stay at my house for a year and not pay and still do the short sale. And I'm like, yeah, I can kind of do that. So that was kind of how I got started in short sales and foreclosures. And they weren't necessarily off-market deals. And then in 2008, 2009, I wasn't like in Chris's category because he was one of the top REO agents in the city. We actually did a few deals together where I remember my client bought a house from him for like $58,000 in Montbello. Typical ranch style home built in the 60s, 70s with a full basement with a nice entry, to on the side that you could, rent the basement. Like he's right. We should have definitely been buying some more real estate back then, instead of just selling them. So I got also involved with a company called Integrated Asset Services. They were actually here in DTC. And I'll mention this a lot. Everything in business and real estate is a lot about relationships. I actually knew a girl who worked there. She was my friend. We used to party a lot together. And when she told me she was working there, I was like, oh man, you got to hook it up. Like, what do you need? What do you need from me? What can I buy you so you can hook me up with your asset manager? And so eventually she hooked me up with her asset manager and we started doing some REO listings. I started doing broker price opinions. And these were actually things that no other realtors wanted. Well, there's realtors who were doing them, but in reality, you don't want to do them because you'd have to go like to a house, take pictures, do a full market analysis, upload pictures, do analysis, and then you knew her too. Annie Frenner would come back and she'd be like, "Hey, your broker price opinion is wrong. This comp, you can't use that comp, and you can't use that comp." And so at night I had to go back in, upload some new pictures, upload a new comp. It was a pain for like $25, $50, sometimes like that. And if you're going to get the listing, you can't get paid on your broker price opinion. So eventually they started feeding me listings, and then I was able to, do the cash for keys, rekey the properties, do the evictions, things like that. And, and then that kind of slowed down like in 2011, 2012. And from there, I started working with a lot of investors who were actually fixing and flipping properties. And I started learning how to like comp properties and how to come out with, the ARVs, values of what they could, sell these properties for fixed up. And I would just get on the MLS basically and just print out some distressed properties and just kind of play with my numbers and see like, okay, this house, my investor could buy it for this price. And then he needs to buy it at this price in order for him to make sense. So that's how I started getting good at that. And eventually it came out to the point where, I was going to listing appointments and the people would be like, "Hey man, I don't want to list a property. I don't want to do open houses. I don't want to do inspections. And I just want cash, and eventually that's when my mind started changing. I'm like, you know what? Why am I going to let this client here that I generated the lead go call my competitor or call somebody else? How about I buy it for cash? How about, I take care of that right now and, change my hat from a realtor to an investor. Chris is a little bit different. He's more like an investor. Whereas me, I use this off market, the pre-foreclosures, the probate to start all my investment deals, but sometimes they're not investment deals. They actually turn out to be listings. So I go for them both ways. So if I can't get the investment side of it, and I'll go for the listing because I'm a licensed agent. And what I tell most people who are in distressed situations, let's try to list your property. But there's a lot of people you'll be surprised that they just don't want to list. And so you don't want to step away and say, "Hey, someone else can make the money." I'm going to go ahead and be that person for them. So now, I'm same with Chris. I'm out there on the field. I door knock about 50 houses a week. I do a lot of cold calling, texting, and I also do direct mail. I like being out in the field. I get a sense for what's going on in the market. And ultimately, you know what? This is what I like. This is my niche. I'd rather do this than go show 30, 40 houses to a client that can, later, terminate at inspection, issues with their loan, showing houses Saturday and Sunday. I feel like I've been in the business too long. I got licensed when I was 20, and I don't really want to be doing that, right now. So I like these type of deals that they're heavy hitter deals where you're making 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, up to $100,000 a pop. I want to show you some of the deals that we've done so that you guys have an idea. But ultimately, this is what I like to do. And we source a lot of deals. I know he gets a lot of calls. And it's funny because right now he was talking about this case study that we're going to have that he's been working on.
Before you came here.
Yeah, before. And he's like, "Hey, I'm working on this deal. This is going to be our case study." I was like, "Oh, I just locked that up 2 days ago." And he's like, "What?" And so it's because sometimes I'll get them, sometimes he gets them. And, it's
we don't
all
even
good.
know we're passing each other in the middle of the night.
But that's kind of my story. So thank you guys for being here and hope you guys can learn something.
Yes. We'll try to make it entertaining. Not so much PG-13. It might be a little bit X-rated, but this is real stuff we do on the streets every day. So we're going to be one of the speakers that actually does this stuff. Like when I'm done here, I'm going to go knock on 3 doors that I've been chasing for a week.
Which address?
Maybe not Roy's.
I'm just kidding.
There's one in Littleton. So I guess the quick snapshot of our history of the money we have made on some properties, like one of our best purchases in my career, is I bought this fourplex property a handful of years ago through an estate. There was an agent lead. An agent gave me a lead, says there's an estate fighting over money, and they got 3 houses to sell, one in Mount Bello, one in Park Hill, and then this property. So I bought the other 2 and flipped those properties, and I kept asking about this property on Vine Street right next to City Park. It's a 4-unit property, but there was actually a basement unit, so it was 5. And the more they fought over the property, the estate, the PR, the lady that was running it didn't really care about the siblings because they were just squatters in the building in theory. She didn't care about the money. So I said, well, what number do they want? They said initially 600, which was still a deal for roughly 5 units. They're all roughly 1-bedroom units. It's like a duplex side by side with the basement unit and in a good location. So I let them fight a little bit longer, and then I just threw out a number like Tourette's and go, well, they take 400. And she's like, yes. So 400 really became a good deal because I bought it, put $150,000 in improving it while the tenants were there. I just kind of worked around them, moved some of the old squatter tenants out, and then we ended up selling. Cesar actually listed it for me on CoStar. We sold it right under $1 million a couple of years later. So that's a good amount of equity walking into it. So that was a larger deal for me that we ended up buying a handful of years ago. I've done a couple that, a handful that make over 6 figures. I've also lost 6 figures on one deal. So I'm one of the investors that don't say, oh, I'm undefeated and I buy 100 houses every year and I make money. No, you'll definitely lose money if you're betting really hard. I kind of look at it like sports betting and try to do a parlay. So anyways, that's a deal that I did. I mean, Cesar has a big, even more exciting warehouse thing he did. You have to explain it to me. Yeah, what's the address?
Let me just connect it over here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll just take this real quick.
Okay.
Put the
Caesar's was more complicated and a lot more time. But it had a squatter, so that's good.
So I was in between appointments in 2017. I had just come back from Cuba, and I had dropped another business that I was involved in, and I was at an appointment, and I basically had about 45 minutes to kill. So I ended up at this ugly compound. I didn't know what it was. I couldn't even knock on the door because there was a gate. And I basically, the seller wasn't there. It was on the pre-foreclosure list. So I had 45 minutes to kill. I went to the taco guy next to the house, and I was like, hey, man, dame el número, give me the person's number, and I'm going to buy some tacos, and, just started chatting with them. You always want to, be proactive. And so I got the telephone number. I called the owner, and he didn't answer. Eventually, he called me back, and he said that he wanted me to lend him some money. And I was like, nah, man, let me just go to your property. And it was like a huge junkyard. Eventually, what I did with that property is I wanted to list it. I had just bought a drone, and I was like, man, dude, let me fly my drone. Let me do I want to list this commercial property. And he just kept saying, no, let me borrow some money. Let me borrow some money. And eventually what I did is I had just had a buddy who was in foreclosure, who I sold his property. He made $50,000. My buddy's super wild, super crazy. And I was like, look, bro, I just left for a month. You just sold your house. Why don't you invest that $25,000 into a property? And he's like, I trust you with everything I have, man. He goes, and if you don't invest this for me, he goes, I'm going to blow through it. And so I invested. What we did is we created a deed of trust on this property. We lent him $25,000, and then we stopped the foreclosure. We actually stopped the foreclosure. We recorded that deed of trust, at Denver County, and I have video footage of us running after the 16th Street Mall because we had a deadline to beat. And so we created a junior lien position on the property. And eventually what happened is I pulled an O&E, and I saw that the property, the note that was actually sending him the foreclosure, all of it was due in about 7 months. So I knew that this guy would be eventually back in foreclosure within a few months. And that's exactly what happened. What I didn't know, though, is this guy, he didn't have a lawyer. He represented himself, but he held this on bankruptcy for 2 years. Held the property in bankruptcy for 2 years. And ultimately, I remember my daughter was just born. I was in the hospital, and I saw that it went back on the sale list because eventually, the bankruptcy didn't go through. Long story short, we ended up go to the pictures here. La foto de los cheques. Yeah. So long story short, this property went into foreclosure. An investor bought it, and I let the whole process play out. These are the checks that I took in, and then this is when COVID was in. I dropped it off in the mailbox in front of Denver County, and my heart was just beating because I was like, man, I'm dropping off $420,000, in the mailbox and right in front of Denver County. And luckily, I didn't have all the funds, but my sister, my dad, and then some lines of credit that we had, we were able to come through with all the money. And I knew that this property at that time was worth about $1 million. Okay. So after it all played out, I got title to the property. And so after about another year and a half, this case almost went to the Supreme Court. He kept delaying where we wanted the writ of restitution, meaning that we could take possession of the property. And this guy just kept delaying everything. He kept throwing in, lawsuits and this. He sued Denver County. Long story short, it took me I had title of the property June 2020. I didn't get possession of it until like February 2022. Yeah, that's how long it took. And on this deal here, we were supposed to do an eviction. The first time we did the eviction, the guy basically was walking around with the sheriff around. I had to bring 20 people to do the eviction, and ultimately he fell on the snow, and so they had to call an ambulance. So they called off the eviction. On the second time, he brought out a doctor's notice that he had COVID. And so eventually what happened on that, we couldn't evict him. And the sheriff was like, I'm sorry, this is going to be a humanitarian issue. It's going to be on the news. And I was like, I don't care about the news, man. I was like, this is not right. So eventually we went back to the judge, and the judge put an order, eviction, no exception. And so the third time he was suicidal, and so, yeah. And so then, all his dogs were a big mess that, the dog pound had to come take his dogs. So eventually we got it done. I had about 30 dumpsters on this property. So long story short, I sold this property for $1.45 million, okay? With a $25,000 investment. Obviously, I was all in with interest that we paid somewhere around $700 and some thousand because of all the dumpsters, all the crews that I needed to clean out this place. We had multiple offers, but this was my big come up. Now, one thing that I tell people is, some of us, we're going to be scrolling on Facebook, Instagram. I like to be focused. I like to be proactive. And I don't like messing around. When I'm working, I'm trying to make deals. I'm trying to make things happen. Sometimes I'm calling 100 people and I don't get nothing. And that's how it is sometimes. But I remember this house. I could have been in between appointments. I could have been scrolling through my Facebook, Instagram. But I was like, nah, I have 45 minutes. I'm going to go find a deal. And that's exactly what I did. This was my biggest deal I've ever done. I have some other deals here that I could show you guys too. That they're about 50,000, 60,000. Let's go. I'll show you guys just one other one. I'll show you real quick. Go to this one. Go back. No, go back. Here, let me see. This one, Irving. This one's 1017 Irving. He's my cousin. He works with me. And if you can see here, I bought this property May 6th, 2022. That's my corporation, Mitron Corporation. Bought it for $320, and then I sold it for $385. The only thing I invested on that was like a dumpster. And I got all this through door knocking. He was actually shadowing me that whole week. And he's like, dude, you're crazy, man. You just walk into all these drug houses. You walk in here like you own it. I was like, yeah, I'm not scared. And eventually when we pulled up in front of this house, I was like, go door knocking. He's like, nah, I'm not door knocking that house. I was, all right, I got it. So I went door knocked it. And after like 5 minutes of talking in the front door, I look at the car and he's like, oh yes. And then I walked back into the car. He's like, we got a wholesale deal. I was like, no, I got a wholesale deal, because, I mean, that's the reality. I've had a lot of people want to come shadow me, come get trained. And I'm going to be super, super, super honest. Every time I go with somebody and they shadow me and then I get a deal or whatnot, they think I got to break them off 50% or give them 20% or 30%. So now when I tell people, you come in with me, anything that I get is mine. That's just, I'm being honest, because, this is what I do. I don't need you to be here. I'm just helping you. You're shadowing me. You're training me. But now, he's not scared to door knock or cold call or text. But these are some of the deals that, that we've done. This one here, like I said, only had to get a dumpster, clean it out a little bit. But this person eventually sold it to somebody else for $14,000 more. And then they fixed it and flipped it at $575. So there's deals where I'll hold on to it and I'll flip it myself. There's deals where I'd rather just wholesale it real quick. I'll buy it cash.
How do you know how to find the difference between?
So sometimes it's my mood. If I'm in wholesale mode, I'm in wholesale mode for like 2, 3, 4 months. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'm in fixing flip mode. I'll buy 3, 4 houses and then I'm broke, for like a couple months. But it just depends on my mood. And honestly, there's a formula that I use. Typically, like on this deal, if I would have held on to it, I mean, I would have made money, but I would have been holding on to it for like 6, 7 months. And it's like, my question is, do you make $55,000 in a couple hours of work, or do you make $100,000 dealing with contractors, dealing with timing, putting your money together? And sometimes that answer is super easy for me. I'll take the money and just be done with it and move on to the next one. Let somebody else deal with the contractors. I have a flip going on right now that we were ready to put it on the market. And no, I didn't pull permits on this one. 3 days before we're going on the market, I got a work stop order from the city of Englewood. So now we're delayed about another month and a half. So it sucks, but that's part of flipping. It
Yeah.
has its pros and its cons. So that's why I like buying these houses, controlling the asset, and then kind of figuring out what I'm going to do next.
I think as we get older, we see the value of 20 grand right now than trying to make 40 in 3 months. Like as I get older, I'm like, I'd rather take the win than deal with the headaches and the over budget and the inspection items and dealing with realtors on the back end. I'm not a fan of a realtor, even though I've been one for 24 years. Did you have a question?
No.
No, you're just giving me a So
I was just gonna piggyback real quick. The other factor you all need to, if you're gonna flip, is figure out the timing within the county or city that you're dealing with. For lead time for permitting, Buffalo County's 12 to 16 weeks right now to get approved. So you're gonna have full cost over the top.
Yep, that's so true.
So here's another, and I'll stop boring you with all these stories. I'm just making a validate some of these properties. Oh, I can't even see it on Google Maps. This is a property that I did. Oh, here's the ghost part. Sorry, that's the X-rated version. Here's a property I did with a wholesaler. Does a lot of door knocking. I call him Ray Ray. There's about 10 sharks, I call it, in the ocean that do this as a full-time job and door knock consistent. Cesar and I are one of them. I'm a less of a shark because I'm too busy managing so many crews. I mean, we have 11 going right now under construction. But this is a deal. This to show you there's a lot of money to be made outside of the MLS or what you think is a deal. So Ray got this deal for $200. He wholesaled it to me for $375. So he made $175 grand on doing nothing to the house. And then I sold it to a hedge fund. I was supposed to sell it to Cesar, but the hedge fund gave me a little bit more money. Sorry, Cesar.
Yeah, no, I remember that deal.
Sorry about that. So I made my quick 40 and they flipped it, roughly a year later because the hedge fund doesn't go very fast. And they made potentially money. I don't know what happened to the house.
But let me stop you here real quick.
Yeah,
but if you look at this right here, go back to that.
Oh, I like this one.
Like, if I'm looking at this, who do I want to be? I want to be this
That
person
guy.
right here, that person, because this is the person that made the big bucks, right? My family was always involved in the carpet cleaning business. No, I'm sorry, in the cleaning business. And I just remember sometimes, they would get a job, but some other family got it, and then by the time it got to them, they were making a lot less. And think about it: this person here who bought it over here, they probably didn't make as much money, or they might have lost money, because it already passed a lot of hands. So what we try to do is we try to get the properties directly. That's where your best source is going to be, directly to the seller. That's where I think your biggest profit margins are. This is, you made money, but this guy crushed it.
Yes,
he crushed it.
And I resented him for many years. We had a relationship where we broke up because I'm like, dude, you're swinging, making 100 grand every time. And I got to go flip this thing and make 20, 30 grand if I'm lucky. Stay on budget, don't get a stop work order. But over time, I realized he earned it. Like he's the one door knocking it. Sometimes I don't ask him how he gets it because there's too much information. I got to take a shower. But in this example, he was looking into the windows and it appeared vacant. Neighbors like, hey, that house is vacant. Stop looking in those windows. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. Where's he at? Well, he's at a nursing home. Which nursing home? That one over there. And so he just drove over to the nursing home. Hey, Mr. Seller, your property is going to be going through foreclosure, and you don't owe hardly anything on it. You owe maybe 50 grand. If I can get $150,000 in your pocket in a couple of weeks, keep your nursing home care, up to snuff, would you take it? And he obviously did. I didn't have any connection to that. I shook my head because like going to find somebody in a nursing home sounds pretty bad. But I got all that after the fact, and I shook my head. I even got a phone call 6 months after the fact that the daughter in New York found out that dad potentially was taken advantage of. And I said, well, you can do whatever you do. I didn't say, don't do that, daughter. I said, you can do simple math and use your own conclusion from New York. If you think your dad was taken advantage of, that's on you. Like, that's not my issue. And she was going after the source at one point. Did something happen of it? I don't think so. I never got any more calls. So anyways, I'm showing you examples. There's a lot of real estate gets traded every week that people don't know exists.
Exactly.
It's a solar system. They all think, oh, we got to go to the MLS and find a really shitty deal. Everybody thinks it's a great deal. It's not.
See, the way I look at it, like the MLS, we're a lot of us are trading on the MLS. We're exchanging properties on the MLS, but there's so much going on off market that if you can land one of these off market deals, you're making a lot of money. You're opening up opportunities for you, and you're not dealing with 10, 12 offers, that you're competing with. Because sometimes when it hits the MLS already, Like I stopped offering on the MLS for like cash deals, investment deals in the last couple of weeks because it's the prices are just getting too elevated, and so it's not even worth my time. I'd rather invest my time into finding me another deal that I can get directly.
So this is the house. I knew I was a junkie when I was there by myself when there was no power, and I'm taking flashes of pictures, and there's a ghost chasing me around. I thought it was a ghost. And I was like, and I didn't panic. That was the weirdest part. I didn't have a flashlight. I'm literally shooting on flashes, like just going through, and there's shit everywhere. So I was like, I don't even have a panic button. I'm like, I got to get out of here. And I'm all by myself. So I was like, if you want me out of here, just tell me, but I got to take some pictures. I just said that out loud. And I took my pictures, and he was in 6 rooms down there. And then I just left. And then I sold it to the hedge fund. I told the hedge fund, you might have a friend, a squatter, that can help you with demo. But anyways, that was
that house you sent it to me when I went to go look at it. I remember clearly. Once I got to the first level,
yes,
I was too scared to go to the basement because you had told me already about the ghosts and all that. And that was the one house that I didn't go. I was like, nah, I'll take it, but I'm out.
Yeah. He was following me. It was awesome. Anyways, so I was going to lead into what makes a deal work, kind of like the simple math. So I don't have a slide for it because we're doing this on kind of a campfire talk with you guys, but how we calculate what works, or at least we're in the range, the landing zone, is we take, if you want to write it down or just memorize it, it's simple math. We take the after repair value, which we call ARV, what it's worth fixed up. We take that usually times 80%, and then we minus the true rehab cost to make a purchase price. I wish I had a slide to break it down, but that kind of gets us in a landing zone.
Yeah.
You want to expand on that?
Well, the other formula that people use, it's very similar to that. It's ARV times 83% minus your repair costs. Yep. I run 3 formulas when I'm analyzing a property. I basically run that formula. I do ARV times 83% minus repair costs. And then I'm also running my own little formula that I came up with that's basically ARV times anywhere from 55% to 70%. Now, if I can get a house at 55% of ARV, I'm doing backflips, cartwheels, everything, because you know what? I know I got me a solid deal. I'm gonna be able to wholesale it, make 40, 50, 60 grand on it. If I get a property anywhere from 60% to ARV, I can still wholesale it. Once I'm closer to 65%, it's running a little bit tighter. Now at 70% to ARV, you're buying it, you got to flip it. And there's no margin there for you to wholesale it to somebody else. So I try to go, usually some of the properties I'm getting around 60% to ARV. And then that allows me still to have enough margin to go ahead and wholesale it if I need to, if I don't want to control that asset and fix it and flip it. The last formula I use is pretty simple, is because I like working with starter homes. I'm not doing luxury flips or anything like that. I like making sure that from purchase price to resale price, there's at least $150,000 to $200,000 difference. So that'll give me enough margin so that I can put 70, 80 into it and still make a profit, because, you're going to get calls from wholesalers and say, hey, you can buy this house at 400,000, you sell it for 500, you put 50 into it, you're making 50 grand. It's not true, because then you got to take in consideration, your holding costs, your construction costs, the rehab costs, commissions. And so all that comes into play. So I like sticking with the 3 formulas that I use. And plus I know that I don't purchase anything over 400, 450 on the buy side, because I like working with entry level homes. I'm not doing luxury flips or anything. So, but those formulas have been key to me. I have agents in my office that I train and I teach, and sometimes they come and they give me a situation. I was like, did you run the formulas? And they're like, yeah, but it's still, I was like, if the formula says they're not working, then why am I going to look at it? We're like, well, can you push this out to somebody else? I was like, no. And they're like, why can't you push out this deal for me? I was like, because the formulas don't work. It's just, the math is not there. Math is math wherever you go, so it doesn't work. So I think if you can kind of get well with your formulas, it's good. And the important thing too is that you got to understand how to do ARVs. You must understand how to do ARVs. Just sit down, get on the MLS, look at all the distressed properties and look at them. Okay, this one here is selling for 300. What can it actually sell for fixed up? And then maybe after track it too, maybe go down 2-3 months down the road, 4 months down the road after someone bought it and flipped it, and see what they actually bought it for and actually sold it for, so you can see what you thought was the ARV. Because then in the future, you want to keep track of these houses, especially when you're starting. Like right now, if you're starting, do some work up front So in the future, you can keep track of some of these houses. I know Chris keeps track of every single house, that's out there on the market. Like, he finds out who bought it, what price. He's like an FBI agent now. So sometimes I got to be careful with what I do.
Yeah, I'll show you that version. So one more. This just proves, and this was a recent deal. I don't want to give you like, oh, I made $1 million on a deal 5 years ago. Like, this is a deal in simple math. If the math works, you're going to buy it. Example, this lady bought this house in October 25th of 22 for $600,000. I paid roughly a year later $225 for a house. Didn't even see it. I was just praying that it didn't burn down. I just said, is there a structure there? I don't have enough time to go to this house. It's in Callahan. I don't even know where the hell Callahan was. Callahan is on its way to Kansas. It's southeast of Elizabeth, about 45 miles on 35 acres. So I was like, it's a 3,000 square foot house on 35 acres, and and it's not burned down. I'll buy it. So I bought it sight unseen, and I paid $225. Lady didn't move out on time, so she needed some extra time to move out. I don't know what her story was. I never got into it. I don't know if it was drugs or something, but she obviously was in distress to pay $600 to take $225. We put $100,000 into it roughly to fix it up, and then I sold it for $450, which was the true market value at that point. So the point of that quick story just went down in the last 6 months. Simple math. That means if there was a deal in LA right now, was for $200,000 for Cesar, and it was 500 or maybe 600,000, would Cesar buy it? Probably. Yeah. Like, you don't have to. I would say you should go see the house, but you can buy anything anywhere. Is my point, as long as the math works. So, anyways, I don't know why I went on that tangent, but I just wanted to show you something recent as well. You had a question, sir?
Yeah, I had for Cesar. So when you're looking at that 70% for your wholesale formula, one, I know a lot of investors or a lot of wholesalers aren't as conservative as you because of experience. Can you give us a range of what if you're like 68 to 72%?
So, like, if you're buying something at 70% to ARV, you really don't have the opportunity. There's going to be a few deals here and there, but you don't have that opportunity to wholesale it. So if you're buying at 70% to ARV or 71, 72% to ARV, it's going to deal that you're going to flip yourself, okay? Because you don't have the margin to wholesale it to somebody else. I like getting them a lot cheaper because then I like having that flexibility if I want to keep it, if I want to flip it myself, or if I want to wholesale the property. That's why I like getting them 60, 61, 62%. At 70%, if you're buying it at that price, you better be fixing and flipping it yourself. That's how I look at it. You really don't, because now you're not going to be able to wholesale that somebody to 70, unless there's a few rare exceptions where the rehab cost is really low. Like if you have a house that only needs 30 or 40,000, but how many houses do we know that really, need to be rehabbed with 30, 40,000? There's very, very few.
Maybe a condo.
A condo definitely, but not a house, not a single family residence. So for me, when these wholesalers come to me and say, hey, this is a deal, and I'm looking at my numbers, I was like, it's not a deal. And then they argue with me, and I'm like, all right, go ahead, keep arguing with me, sell it to somebody else because I'm not interested. So, I stick to my formulas and they work.
It's true.
I also think it's important to keep an eye on the market because those percentages can change. Right now it's hot. You can go up to 84, 85% minus repair value.
Yes.
A year and a half ago, we were dropping it to, 75 to 78.
Yes.
So it's a good calculation to live by, but it's not,
Yeah, it's a barometer. Like it gives you a barometer, like where you kind of need to be, and it's not going to be all the time. But I always look back after I sell the property, and I'm like, what did I buy it at? Eventually, most of the times I'm buying about 60, 61% of ARV, and so that I know if I'm getting it at that percentage, that I know that I'm going to be okay. If I need to resell it. But yes, the market does change.
And you should always be studying the market. So you get like market reports. Jared will give them out to everybody on a monthly basis, right, Jared? Which is supply and demand. How many houses are on the market? How many days on market, to sell them, and list price to sales price ratios. If you're studying this like from a science and not a napkin and a prayer, then you can start to kind of forecast to the best of your ability. For example, 2 years ago, before the rates went up, they were at the 3%. Through wintertime, historically, I buy as many as I can to keep to fix and flip and sell in spring. I chose that year to buy roughly like 18, 19 under construction. And I sold all those the first quarter of the year prior to the rate hikes going up. It was like Mother Day's weekend and the rates went way up. Thank goodness I had 90% of them all sold before that. In that 90-day window from roughly January to the April roughly, I made more money in that 90 to 120-day window than I did when I sold 424 houses in 1 year, because I stacked the parlay and I was getting the overbid. Like people were making offers on houses back then and getting 20, 50. We had one that went 100 grand over list price, waiving the appraisal gap. So like Jack mentioned, if you can sense the market when to bet hard, you can hit it hard. And then obviously the other side of that story, quarter number 4 in the same year as the rates were going up, I lost money. I lost like $250,000 because I bought 5 houses that made sense at that point. I didn't think the feds were going to raise the rates Mother Day weekend. I thought it was going to be in October. And then I started bringing big checks to the closing. Like they were mostly like 50 grand. Ray sold me a deal. I lost 90 grand. Ray made 100 grand on the wholesale to me. I lost 90. So you can see the relationships can be pretty static with some of these guys. But anyways, that was something that worked out for me. Anyways, so back into looking up people. We'll do Jared as a test sample. Everybody has a skip tracing tool, how to find people. Like White Pages, been verified, Truthfinder,
RedX.
I use a system called TransUnion, which is like a credit bureau. It's called TLO.com, or another one is LexisNexis. So when I'm trying to find somebody and get the correct phone number, I use it. You can't just go online and say, give me a subscription. They literally, you'll have a third party come in, interview. They'll do a background check on you. They'll go to your office and make sure you have a locked door and a paper shredder and a filing cabinet and a server that doesn't go around the office, because this is intimate information. But the first day I met Jared, I have kind of a photographic memory. I kept saying, Jared, your birthday's coming up pretty soon, which was last week. It was March 29th. And it just gives me a lot of information on people. I won't do Jared so much, but I can click on a couple buttons, read him his social security number. I can, roughly tell who his wife is. I don't think his kids are on here, but
Accurate.
All right.
All accurate.
Yes. So this is a system I use. I'm not promoting it. I don't get any extra money, but there's a property that I'm currently chasing, but Cesar already had it locked down ahead of me. That is a pre-foreclosure, which is this address. And I did meet with a gentleman back in, this is a property in Denver. I met with him back on January 6th, actually. And I went to the house and it was condemned and it was boarded up. And I was like, sweet, this is the one. This is the piece of crap house in the whole neighborhood. And he came late as usual. He showed up and we broke into the back side of the house because it was condemned and boarded up. So I was like, all right, one guy, watch out for the cops. I'm going in with this old crazy guy because I got to see what I'm buying, even for 30 seconds. So we did the tour. The whole time the neighbor came out and explained to my partner, who was a part of my team, goes, do you know what's going on in there? The house is condemned. And that guy that went in there with your friend, I don't know how to explain it. He killed his grandmother. And here he is with a crowbar. 21 years ago. He did 21 years in prison, got out after 21 years. And then his mother died, and now he's the only son. So I was like, sweet. I was in the basement with this guy, a drug house, and ducking the whole time, going, don't hit me, Roy. So that's a lot of our clientele. We deal with a really big shitheads. I mean, excuse my French. And so they do not intimidate me at all. I actually have a lot of fun with those people because I think they're all full of crap. I mean, we're basically playing poker. So I was like, Roy, we'll call him Roy. I go, Roy, this is a beautiful house. Shame on the city for boarding it up. I can't believe those people. I hate the cops too. Let's go eat lunch. And I'll go usually buy them lunch to get some food in their system so I can build better rapport and not be in front, because the neighbors are watching us. So anyway, so that's what I did. I ended up following with Roy. I made an offer. He signed it, followed up for 2 months, and he ghosted me. His girlfriend, Brittany, came out of prison. So I was like, sweet, I'll buy Brittany lunch. And she's just some young girl that was in for Grand Theft Auto. But she did show up to us at a Cherry Creek grill thing on a Saturday.
Really?
And she showed up and she was higher than a kite. So I told my partner, I'm like, dude, I should be at home with my wife and kids. I'm not playing games with Brittany today. And she was tweaking hard. And I was like, you cover her bill, buy her a nice lunch. I'm not playing her game right now. And Roy didn't show up. So anyways, fast forward, I just learned about an hour ago before he showed up, Cesar tracked down Roy, and now he has him under contract, and they're getting ready to close in probably like a day. I mean, it's locked down. So, and here Roy's been ghosting me, and we've been following up with him. I've been trying to find out what hotel he's staying at. I doubt it's like the Ritz, but the one on Colfax, and go find him and go knock on his door. Hey, Roy, how I would approach it is like, hey, Roy, I haven't seen you. Didn't return my call, but I'm really hungry. Let's go to lunch. Like, I wouldn't even say, how come you didn't call me back? Again, Roy's full of shit. He's in prison for 21 years. He killed his grandmother. Do I really care? No. So that's a quick version of.
Yeah. And so just you guys know, like on this particular deal, I door knocked it, I cold called it, and then I didn't go much further than that. But what I do is I teach the agents in my brokerage, and there's not everyone wants to be, doing this because it's kind of like the dirty work of real estate. But there's like maybe 7 or 8 agents within our brokerage who have learned really well. And now they know how to attack these properties and get to them. And so sometimes, I'm not getting all of them. Sometimes they're bringing some deals and we work it together. So, I mean, if you can partner up with other people to pay some of the systems or to work deals together, there's times I'll be straight up. Like there's times where I'm in Montbello, and excuse if I offend anybody, but if it's LaTanya and LaTanya doesn't like me or Jamal doesn't like me, I go call one of my agents in my office and say, hey, man, Chocolate, man, go over there, take care of that, and they go in there because they know they're going to work, they're going to fit better with them, and I'm just keeping it real. There's some people that don't want to talk to me, they want to talk to a female, or there's somebody that won't want to talk to me, they're going to want to talk to somebody who's white, and I get that. It's just part of the business. So, I mean, I partner up with a lot of people, and we work together on certain deals. There's deals where he has basically gotten nowhere, but he's got the contact information. And so I go in there and he calls me and say, hey man, like maybe you can hit it off with this lady better. And I go in there and we do the deal, and then we both take care of each other. So, I mean, that's how we built our relationship, because there's deals that he's going to get that I'm like, hey man, I'm working on the deal. And he's like, I got the deal. I was like, but that's just simply how it is sometimes, he's getting them, or sometimes I'm getting them, someone else is getting them. But, you just do have to work hard for them. They're not easy.
We try to play nice in the sandbox. There's plenty of sharks that we have to compete with. So those people, there's no rule book. I mean, that's the relationship business that we're in with investing. There is no rule book. You got a lot of big wholesaling companies that send out their deals on a daily basis, but they've never flipped a house in their life. There's no relationship. So just be careful when you buy, just to stick to your calculator, your formula. If you start wanting to buy a deal because there's 10 more people coming in an hour and there's a sense of urgency, don't always take the bait, is my suggestion. This is approach that I do when I knock on doors. This is something I created on my own as usual. There is a state grant. When I knock on a door in pre-foreclosure, they can apply online to this website up here to register for a $30,000 state grant. So when I knock on a door, they really can't tell me to get the F off of their driveway because I just gave them 30 grand is my approach or my confidence. So I knock on the door and I said, excuse me, Carmela, do you know about the Colorado Emergency Assistance Program? What's that? I'm like, ma'am, I'm not here to buy your house. Number one. Number two, do you know about this program? She's like, what is it? And she's like scanning me. Am I just another scammer? I'm just another door knocker. Am I full of shit? And I said, this program, if you apply and register and get approved, I've never seen anybody get denied, will reinstate up to $30,000. So when I knocked on her door and I finally got into her dining room table to kind of do the offer presentation, I realized that 2 other sharks were circling her really hard. We'll call them Kenny G is one of them and Ray Ray. And I was like, I know those guys. And I said, after 5 minutes, I go, I don't think anybody's going to buy your house, including Kenny G and Ray Ray, even me, because I am a shark. I'm trying to buy houses. I'm going to help you register, which I did. I helped her go online. She got everything filled out. And then 3 weeks later, I got her approved that she owes only $15,000 behind on her payments. And those monies don't go to her. It goes to her bank, which was Westera Credit Union. And then I saved her house. No money, like community service, basically. But I knew, through karma, I would go buy more houses in a week or two, and it did happen. Like 2 weeks later, I went on a 6 parlay. I did 6 deals in 1 week. And I called her and I said, Carmela, I'm on my parlay. This is what I was talking about. I helped you You're an African-American, 62-year-old single lady. This is the karma coming back. And she calls me on a monthly basis. I knew after I did this and helped somebody, I would have more confidence to knock on more doors providing a service. Now, if I would have walked on Roy's house, the condemned meth house, he's not going to really register for this. The house is condemned. It's full of drugs or whatever. But there are situations where we do help people. Like Cesar doesn't always buy them. He says, your house is not bad. You should put it on the open market. You have time. Let's get you the most amount of money. So you don't always have to like shark them or try to take their money and make $100,000 off them every time. There are guys that do that on a daily basis, though.
Yeah, my thing is like I try to go to these properties and I try to I have a flyer that I leave and it's more about giving them their options. I never talked to them originally about, hey, let me buy your house. My spiel is basically I knock on the door. Hey, this is Cesar Reyes here with Megastar Realty. I just want to give you a flyer. It goes over some of the options that you have right now, given the current circumstances that you're going through. And then I basically give it to them and I kind of see how they react to that. A lot of times, I will get someone to shut the door on me. I will get somebody to say, hey, I got it worked out already. I was like, oh, are you doing a forbearance? Are you doing a loan modification? Okay, make sure you get that paperwork in time. We've helped out numerous families do the loan modification. They'll have us come into their house and I just tell them, look, you got to fill that out and send it into the bank, send it in quickly. And so we've helped out numerous families, who are in that situation. And then there's going to be some people that are actually going through divorce, some people that are going through substance issues, and there's a lot of that, and ultimately, at one point, when they told me that some clients would tell me they wanted to do a deal cash, I'm like, wow, I can buy it at this price. That's the price I want it, and I'm like, if I don't buy it, Chris is going to buy it. So, I might as well buy it, right?
Yeah.
So, but sometimes, I go in there trying to help people out. Last year, I helped out about 7 or 8 families list properties that were in pre-foreclosure. And then I did somewhere about 8 to 10 wholesale big deals off the pre-foreclosure list. I'm the type of agent that I'll help someone. I'll take them to the Denver County or Jefferson County. I'll take them to the probate division. And I'm not a lawyer, full disclosure. But what I do is say, hey, this is asking here when your husband died. What did he die from? What county did he live in? Blah, 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 blah. $280 later, boom, they got the letter of testamentary that we need. And now we can put it on the market, or now I can do the cash deal with them. But if they go to a lawyer, $4,000 or $5,000, they're going to drag it on. And these people are already in distressed situations. They don't have that money. And so for you to have that confidence and that ability, is just you're helping somebody out. Like I feel good when I'm able to help somebody out, just save them $4,000 or $5,000. $4,000 or $5,000. I've taken people to Jefferson County, taken them to Denver County, Arapahoe County. They'll send it to you in about a week.
Did you drive them there?
Yeah, I take them in my car, I drive them there, I help them out, and I actually, sometimes on some of these deals, I'm fronting the bill. I'm paying for it because they don't have the money.
They won't do it.
Yeah, they won't do it.
They won't even get in the car.
Yeah.
They get in the car, let's go.
You have to be proactive. You have to be somewhat a little aggressive too. Like, hey, this needs to be done now. Your sale date's coming up. But those are some of the things that in this particular type of business that we deal with. And I'm not scared to take someone to Denver County. I mean, I tell people just be proactive, make a lot of calls, call Denver County, find out, what their process is and, find out the situation with the family, how many other brothers and sisters there are, but all that can be done. Sometimes people think, oh, it has to go to probate and they just step away. Like when I hear about probate, that doesn't scare me. I'm like, oh, no big deal. Let's get it done. If it's going to cost me $300, $400, so be it. I've paid for people's hotels. I paid for them to get people to move their thing. One of the clients that I sold last year still has my cell phone because she didn't have an email. She didn't have a phone in her house, nothing. So I gave her a cell phone. I had an extra cell phone. She still has it. I closed the deal in August. She's such a nice lady, and I still have on one of my storages some of her stuff, because you want to help these people out. They're in distressed situations. So not all about it is about, hey, let's see how much money we can make. It's about helping them out first and foremost. And so what I like to do is I try to tell people, list your house right now if you can, make the most money. But sometimes there's people that just don't want to list. They want that quick cash. They want that money right now. And then, we're a source for that as well.
Yep. So, yes.
Would you say your main source
Jackie.
of leads is pre-foreclosure or what you go after?
I would say 40% is pre-foreclosure because there's only like 10 sharks that are consistently doing. So I don't have to compete with 50 people at this point. Maybe you guys are going to do it tomorrow. But I have a lot of agent relationships. So agents will say, hey, Chris, you bought a house from me a year ago. I want to sell it to you. I don't want to deal with a normal wholesale company. And I'll get those phone calls and I'll buy those from realtors. A realtor will never let me get a really major discount on a property because they always get their CMA involved with the client. And so but if you find somebody in distress on drugs that are going to go to foreclosure in 1 week, you're probably going to get a discounted price, or you can. I don't feel guilty of the price I offer because I know Ray and Kenny G and Steve and the other sharks will basically try to steal the farm. Let's be honest. Cesar and I will pay more of a healthy price. They still win. Like, I still have to sleep at night when I do these deals. The other people, you can use your imagination.
So you're not pulling probate lists?
I do pull probate lists.
We do. I buy probate lists from all the leads. I'm paying about $700 a month just for Arapahoe and Adams County. And basically that list will give me the person's name, address. It also give me the person who deceased, give me the subject property address. It will also give me who the PR is, the personal representative. It'll give me the personal representative's numbers. Give me like 4 numbers. And it also gives you the lawyer's number. So what can you do with that information? You can just look at it on your screen and think about it, or you can be proactive. Proactive means cold calling them, texting them, sending direct mail, and door knocking. One of the stories that that me and Chris shared is we had a deal in Arvada, and I was door knocking Arvada probate because it was in COVID. There wasn't new foreclosure, so I started getting better at probate. And he's like, man, I hit this house up. She didn't like me. She yelled at me. He's like, I'm done. I can't do anything with that house. He's like, can you go try to take a turn on it? So I went in, did my presentation about listing the property. But how I got that deal was funny because I was door knocking Arvada, and I saw that the PR, the personal representative, lived 2 blocks away. So what I did is I door knocked the subject property, and there was nobody there. And even though there's nobody there, I still leave a card in the flyer because guess what? There's always going to be somebody returning to that property from that family to check up on the house, to see if things are all right. And I saw that the PR lived 2 blocks away, somewhere about 2 blocks away. And I went over there and I door knocked that house too, and nothing. There was nobody there. So I left a sticky note there. Sticky note, right? Ghetto, but sticky note. Hey, I'm interested in the property, blah, blah, blah. A couple blocks away, I'll buy it in cash. And I saw that they smoked cigarettes because they had an ashtray full of cigarettes there. So I left my business card, my sticky note right underneath the ashtray because guess what? I knew they were going to go back there at some point in the day to go smoke a couple cigarettes. Mm-hmm. 2 days later, the lady calls me. She's like, you really know how to get people's attention, right? I was like, oh, yeah, I definitely did. I got your attention, right? And she's like, yes, you did. So we ended up doing the deal. On that deal, I think it made like 17, 18 grand. He made another 5 grand, because he actually gave me the source. So, we were able to help each other out because it was a dead lead for him. So that's how we collaborate sometimes on some deals.
This is all the leads. I mean, just going to be a real life example. This came out on March 21st. Mm-hmm. And it just sends you a list and you filter it, but it gives you a personal representative of the estate, which is a little bit easier than going to the county each month yourself and doing yourself manually. But it does need a lot of resources. Like 50% of the leads we buy from every county, they don't have real estate attached to the estate. Mm-hmm. So you're like throwing away almost 50%, it feels like. But yeah. So to answer Jack's question, yes, probate, I don't do as much, maybe 20% if I'm lucky. But I 100% believe what Cesar says. Call the PR, text them. That's easy. If they're here locally and you run across a Denver house that looks distressed from the exterior and it looks vacant, obviously, then just drive over to the PR's house. If the house is in Denver and they live up in even Thornton, drive to Thornton. Does it suck? Yes. Does traffic suck? Yes. But Cesar and I do a lot of stuff that sucks every day still after 20 years. I go knock on the door. And I try to be, I don't want to be an ambulance chaser, but I'm very careful what I say in those situations. I don't know if I got the right person. I play stupid. I don't know if I got the right person, but I knocked on a door on El Dorado place down in Denver, and I wanted to know if you're the PR or the personal rep of the estate, have you guys considered selling the property? Because it looks vacant. Almost looking like I'm the neighborhood security or I live in the area, but there was a house I drove by, it looks vacant. Have you guys considered an offer? And then I start there. And they'll say, well, we're still cleaning it up. I need a couple more weekends. Have you hired a realtor? No, I haven't. And then it's just getting permission to get their information to follow up. Can I make you an offer? It looked like it's aged or outdated. And I just try to build rapport with them. And who else is going to knock on that door? Nobody.
And the other thing too about going to physically visit a house is that you get a sense of what's going on in that property. Like I went to a property in Aurora that just came out on the Notice of an Election Man list a couple of days ago. And when I got there, I realized that something has happened in that property. It was just because I peeked through the window and it looked bad. And so when I see that type of property, like I put a little star on my list because I want to follow up a little bit extra on that property. There's going to be some properties where I door knock and the house looks pretty nice. I know eventually it might become a listing, or they'll most likely get back on track and they'll stop the foreclosure. But by going to the property, you actually get a sense for the neighborhood. You get a sense for, you can talk to the neighbors too. The neighbors are going to spill some of the beans. And then at the same time, you can kind of peek through the window and kind of get an idea if the property is distressed. And if it's distressed, then I put a higher emphasis on me doing further research, because I can't do the same type of research on every single property that I go door knock, because some of them are just going to be a listing. They're going to get back on track. It's not going to be a deal, but by physically visiting the property, you can kind of see this might be a deal. Yes. It's distressed. The house is ransacked inside. And that's how I felt about this house. So now I'm doing a little bit further research on it because I need it now. And then when I did the research on that house, I found out that the owner is 70 some years old. So there's a high probability that she might have passed. And now the kids or grandkids are taking care of everything and they don't care. They haven't made payments and the house looks like crap. So now it's finding the right person of who I need to get a hold of.
Yeah, my goal is to knock 10 doors, we'll say, in a day, and then star 2 or 3. Like this one's hoarded, this one's trashed, and then come back to those. That's what my belief is. But there are people that have houses that are not really bad, and they still end up selling. But I kind of focus on the houses that are really bad repair, because they probably don't have the money to make their mortgage and or fix up their house in the meantime. This is a system that I use. Cesar will do his. I use a system called Renav just to filter my pre-foreclosures. I'm not promoting Renav. I try to make an offer on the company a couple times. It didn't work out with the owner. But this is what I use to filter properties because it allows me to kind of target the people that have equity. So I'm just doing a 10-second demo. This is going into advanced search. We're just going to do Denver County. Houses that are active or restarted on the pre-foreclosure list. I'm making this simple with you guys. The auction date is, I don't know, next week. And it'll be at the end of June. I'm just choosing properties going to auction next couple weeks to the end of June. But what the category that I like the most is the loan to value ratio. So the loan to value ratio is they have equity in the property. They owe, we'll say, 100 or 200,000 on the house. Does that make sense at all? Or let me go to something maybe I recognize. Yeah, this one. So here's a property on Lincoln Street. In theory, they owe, unless this is wrong, they owe $100,000 on the house, and it's the assessed value says it's worth 500. So this is how I pull my list. I'm looking for the properties with the most amount of equity, and I start with those first. Cesar has his version, but this is the value of Renav because I can, without pulling a CMA on these properties or an O&E report, I can kind of at least get a ball game. Did you want to add to?
Sure. I mean, I'll show what I kind of do.
You want
I'll just use your computer.
All
So
right.
I can
Hack away. Set up another tab.
all right.
Oh, sorry. Why do you want it to have the most amount of equity? Why is
Because if they owe too much money on the property, like they can become a short sale, then there's just no equity for me to buy the property at a discount. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if they owe what it's worth, then it's like I can't get a discount to make money for me as the investor.
He's not going to target a house that's worth 500 and they owe 490. It's to him, it's pretty much like a waste of time, right?
Yes.
More or less. For me, it's not so much of a waste of time because for me, I look at it like, okay, if they're in that distressed situation, okay, I know how to do short sales, so I'll list the property because I don't mind putting in the work and doing the short sale. If they don't have that as much equity as well, you know what, I can still list the property and I'll still make 9-10 grand. 9-10 grand to me is still 9-10 grand. I go into the county websites and I'm a little different. I like what Chris does. How much does Renav cost monthly?
Each county is like $20 a month.
Okay.
Each county, Adams. I have all the counties, so I'm spending $150, $160 per month for that system.
So for instance, I go into Arapahoe County, the Arapahoe County Public Trustee site, and this is basically my MLS. You know how everybody's involved is on the MLS all day, every day. I'm on this every day, all day. So for instance, if I wanted to hit up all the new foreclosures that came up this week, I'm going to filter it, from the 1st of April to the 4th of April, and I'm going to go NED recorded, and boom, I'm going to go search. Okay. And then these are like 5 houses. They just popped up on the list. So I'm going to go hit these houses up, whether I'm going to look at, like, for instance, if I'm in Aurora, I'm going to go to the 813 first, hit up all those. And because it has a few more, and then I go back to my list that I have, and I have a spreadsheet that I keep track of every single house that I door knock, cold call. I'm going to go back and I'm going to hit up some of the other houses that are also in 813. So for instance, if I'm going to go to 813, I'm going to go hit up Jerry Gomez. I'm going to go hit up the property on Biscay. I'm also going to go back. Let me see. I'm going to go back like maybe a year, because sometimes these foreclosures are for a year. They're 120 days, but they keep getting extended for one reason or another. And then I'll go back here and I'll filter this by zip code 813, and I'll circle back and I'm going to hit some of these houses up. Now I have 25 houses. Okay, these are all in pre-foreclosure stage still in 813, and I'm going to go hit up all these houses, and I already got it down to a math. I can do about door knock about 7-8 houses an hour. If I have somebody I'm with, if I have somebody come in my car, they're not coming in my car just to chit chat. I'm having them on one of the systems to go ahead and pull out numbers, and then I'm cold calling as I'm driving to the house, to the next house. So I'm trying to be as efficient, as effective as possible. I don't got time to waste. So if someone's riding with me, I'm going to have them get on the computer, find numbers for me, and we're going to start calling and emailing. Yes, sir. I don't even know. I just know that for every 10 houses that I door knock, I'm getting about one person to open the door on me. But as far as like percentages of return on my drive time, I basically, I don't go from
50 doors. Yeah.
So basically for me, if I'm doing about 50 to 60 houses a week, I'm going to land something. I'm going to land either a listing or an off-market deal. That's how I look at it. It's a numbers game to me, And the problem that I see with a lot of people is they'll do this for about a couple of days. They'll do it for a week or two, and they don't get anything. They give up. For me, I just know that I'm going to keep going because it works.
You're just offering options rather than just going for houses.
Yes. I'm Robin Hood. Like, that's how I look at it. I'm coming in to help people out. And at the end of the day, to be honest with you, I would prefer that people list and just make the most money possible. But once you come into some of these houses, you're going to see that that's not going to be their best option, that they need to do a cash deal. Yes.
Probate site, which one are you using?
So all the leads. It's called ATL, all the leads. You're paying about $350 per county. Okay. It's all the leads. All the leads. That's what it's called. Yeah, all the leads. And so if you don't want to front all that money, partner up with somebody and split that bill. But this is where I kind of go in, and I'm more like I'm more of a fire and then aim. So I fire, and I'm going to hit up all these houses. And typically, if I have somebody with me who has their car, I'll divide this zip code, and I'll be like, you hit these 10, I'll hit these 15, and we'll meet in an hour and a half. We'll have some coffee. We'll update our systems. And then, we'll hit another zip code. So that way I'm trying to cover as many zip codes as possible. Some of my sweet spots, Montbello. I love Montbello. I love Green Valley Ranch. I love 80219. I call that the barrio. So, I'm always in that area because those areas have been really, really good to me. There's a lot of distressed properties over there. Yes.
What are you using to track it?
I'm sorry, it's tracking?
Yeah.
It's just regular Google Sheets, Excel sheet. I'm basically copying and pasting all this right here. And then I'm basically on the spreadsheet. And then I have a notes section there. And then the ones that actually are on the MLS, I highlight those red so I don't touch those again. And the ones that are actually I made contact with, I highlight those green. I put my notes. When I talk to the people, I put the telephone number. The ones that I've tried to get a hold of, but I haven't made any contact, I'll highlight those yellow. And so I always circle back to my spreadsheet, because at the end of the day, if you're doing all this and you're disorganized, that's not going to help you out. I have my spreadsheet, and I always go back to my spreadsheet, and I have it divided up into every county, And so one of the top guys who door knocks, he has a big, notebook?
Yeah, binder.
Binder like that
Per county.
Yeah. And so he's well organized on that. I have something that works for me. But typically I'm hitting up the new ones. Now I always get asked this question: when's the best time to hit up these houses? All the time. That's true. I've had some success As soon as they come on the NED list, I've had success in the middle, and then there's a lot of success at the end too, because now they're desperate. Like they need to do something. One of the things that I tell people is that I'm the best realtor in the market in pre-foreclosure. There's no one better than me in the market. And I strongly feel that way, you know, and because I know how to stop a foreclosure 2-3 days before the auction date. 1 day before the auction date, I can stop it. I know how to do it. But if they don't want to work with me, I'm not going to do it for them, right? So, but that's kind of the value I bring into is I want to help them list. I want to help them keep some of their equity. But sometimes you have people that procrastinate a lot. They won't. You tell them to do all these things, and then they don't do it, and then now they're a couple of days from the sale date, and like they're in a tough situation, and you got to kind of save them, you know. And there's been situations where it's just simply a little bit too late, or they don't want to do what we call the bankruptcy to stop the foreclosure. That's kind of like my nuclear last minute thing that I have to do. I've paid for $3,000 for a client to file the bankruptcy, and it's just to buy us time. But eventually, you know, you got to analyze it. I'm not going to pay that $3,000 if they're not going to sign a listing agreement or sign a purchase contract agreement with me, because then I just threw $3,000, you know, away. So those are some of the things that we do on this. But this is Arapahoe County, and then, for instance, I can go into the foreclosure reports, and I can see what the pre-sale list is, what's going to go to auction. This week, there wasn't anything. Last week, I think there might have been a couple properties. These are the properties that went to auction or on the pre-sale list last week. I also, where did I go back? How do I go back here, Chris?
No say.
Where am I?
Good luck. Oh, you're probably further down here.
Okay, right here.
Maybe. Sorry, probably.
Oops.
No say.
It's all right.
Hit the poll now. Maybe.
The other thing too that you want to do is you kind of want to do some analysis, and that's where Renav comes in really, really good. But I just go into my the Arapahoe County, for instance, and if I'm interested in a certain property, I'll just go into the first. I'll go into fourth.
But his question was good. What do we do and say? My goal is to get them to talk to me. If I knock on the door, and we're really good at what we do, and so is Ray and Kenny G and the other sharks, say, I want to buy your house. Doesn't matter who you are, you're probably not going to buy it that day or that minute. Sometimes you get lucky, like 1 out of 200, but we're just trying to get them to talk, give them options. In my situation, if I can help them save their house and stay in there, great. I feel like I did something positive today, and the karma will pay off, or he wants to list to get the most amount of money. But our whole thing is to give them options to keep them talking. If they don't talk, you're not going to get anywhere.
So here I went dug in a little deeper into a certain property. I go into basics, and then I'm seeing here, okay, this person original loan balance is 159. Their outstanding principal balance is 111. Now, one thing I will tell you about that number is you got to add 20, 30 grand to that number, because what will happen is people think, oh, I owe 111,000. No, you owe 111,000 when you stop making payments. Now you're behind 6, 9 months, 12 months. And so I always add 20, 30 grand to it. If it's a higher amount, I might add a little bit more. But you always want to grab that amount and add some money to it. This is here where you can kind of see when the cure date is. So this is when the person has the last date to file the intent to cure, when the last date they can actually cure the loan. And if you go to basics, it tells you when the sale date is. You know, there's people I know that do this type of work, and then they actually try to corner a seller. Hey, the sheriff's coming next week. Hey, you're going to take you out of your house in a couple of days. You know, you got to act fast. I don't like doing that because I feel that's wrong. I feel like, you know, you should be honest with people. You should tell them, you know, exactly how much time they have, but you should also let them know that this is time of urgency. You have to act quickly. You know, you can't. Some people say, I'm going to do the loan modification. Well, if you're going to do the loan modification, you should be calling the bank immediately to get that package in, fill it out, get it notarized, send it back. Don't wait 30 days before the auction date to kind of get all that going, because then it might be a little too late. But this is kind of what I use, and I like using this because it just it's actually from the actual county. It's directly from Arapahoe County, Denver County, and you can do all the research. You can also see here view documents, like some of the documents that have been filed. Like you'll have a lot of people too that will file for bankruptcy, and just because they file for bankruptcy doesn't mean that it's not a deal. I go after those deals as well, because a lot of people will file for bankruptcy and they will actually not go through with the bankruptcy. So for instance, if I go here, instead of NED recorded, I'll go to bankruptcy and bankruptcy to be continued. And look, I'm going to have some of these people here. These are all people that file bankruptcy. But here's the thing with bankruptcy. So a person can file bankruptcy on a foreclosure. They can't get foreclosed on. But what's going to happen is they got to continue on with their plan, their bankruptcy plan. And most people don't continue on with their bankruptcy plan. Or if they do get on their bankruptcy plan, what's going to happen is you got to make your payments on time. If you don't make your payments on time, guess what happens? You go back to foreclosure, and now you're going to go to foreclosure within 2 weeks. And that's what happens. And so I had a deal that the guy actually worked with my father at IBM, and he was in pre-foreclosure, and I kept going to his house, and he was like, nah, I don't want to list, and he was an alcoholic. And then ultimately he got a little job, he got on bankruptcy, had a bankruptcy plan, and then he got behind. They threw him into foreclosure again, and he only had about 10 days to sell the property. He calls me. He's like, can you help me out? And I was like, of course I can help you out. I can still get the deal done. I went to his house. His wife signed the listing agreement. He didn't sign the listing agreement. Then I had some other realtor call me. He's like, hey man, you can only do this deal cash and you can't list it on the market. I was like, yeah, you can. He goes, no, you can't. I was like, dude, watch me. I was like, watch me list this property and get it sold in 5 days. And I did. I listed that property, got it sold, helped them out. They made some money. But the thing about bankruptcy is that it's a temporary fix. It stops the foreclosure. I've done deals where I've filed bankruptcy for a client. Not filed, but I paid for the bankruptcy, paid the lawyer, and we got the foreclosure stopped, and then we ended up doing the deal. But
I actually helped this lady right here, Michelle Webb. I sent her a text message. She goes to auction in a week. I say, can I come over and give you your options? She's like, no, you want to buy it? And I go, yeah, probably. And I go, anybody else sharking you? And she's like, oh yeah, I got guys knocking on my door every day. And I go, so what do you want to do? I got a disabled child. I just want to stay in the house. I go, you should file bankruptcy. I go, if you can figure out how to do it online, it'll save you a lot of money. She says, I don't want to go online. I go, I'll give you a bankruptcy attorney and you can call him. And she did. And 3 days later, he called me. He's like, yeah, she filed bankruptcy. Now, will she continue to execute the 5-year term of the bankruptcy? Probably not. But I helped her, and it's charity work. It's community service. But the odds of her coming back to me, there's a chance. I still send a text to her every 2 months to saying, hey, if the bankruptcy doesn't work out, I'm still looking to offer you more options. So probably if I had a crystal ball, it would probably be fall, October of this year. I'll probably get a text from her. She'll say, hey, my bankruptcy is discharged. I'm not paying the monthly trustee payments. And then she'll remember me potentially. And then I'll go in with another plan B. I'm not going to go over there and buy it either. I'm going to try to explain the Colorado Emergency Assistance Program and try to give her still more options, talk about forbearance. But if she naturally says, you know what, I just sick of dealing with the bank hounding me, I just want to move on, then of course I'm going to go in for the kill. But I don't always go over there and say, oh, your bankruptcy is discharged, you need to sell it to me now. I got to build a rapport again. That's my version of how I do it.
Yeah. So I feel like you want to be present for the people. Last year I got a listing and I had door knocked it, left my flyer. Then like 2-3 weeks later, I door knocked it again, left my flyer. And then I sent it direct mail to as well. And then finally, when we met up, she called me. She says, I need to sell. My husband passed away a couple of years ago. I don't have any money. I don't have a phone. I don't have email. And I asked her, I was like, why did you call me instead of all these other people here that door knocked your property and actually sent you direct mail? She's like, because when it came time that I had to make a decision, your face and your flyer was the only one I could think of. So sometimes it's repetition. Sometimes it's not just one thing. People always ask me like, okay, is it the door knocking? I was like, it's a combination of all of them. It's the door knocking. It's the text messaging. It's the cold calling. It's the direct mail. Sometimes, they'll see you door knock and then they'll get their direct mail. They're like, man, this person really is really trying to help me out, really persistent.
The one in Inglewood, the hoarder lady in Inglewood.
Yeah.
You sent a letter. And she called you.
Exactly.
She didn't want anybody knocking on her door.
Yeah. So some people don't want people. They think that's offensive. And I get that, but you hit them different ways. But that's one thing. It's not easy. I spend I've been in the business 25 years and I like this. I'd rather do this for me personally than being out there showing houses all the time, because when we land a nice, good deal, I mean, it's a great deal, but I actually like helping people out. And if I do get the off-market deal where it's a cash deal and I flip it myself, just kind of seeing the transformation on the property is really gratifying. But I like this type of work and I'm going to continue to do it. But I'm still Prospecting, good 20 to 25 hours a week. That's what I focus on, prospecting, because I just don't wait for things to come. And then I like teaching some of my agents how to do this, because ultimately it comes back to me, because now, they'll land a deal and they need me to dispo it, and I'll help them dispo it, and I'll make 5, 10, maybe sometimes 15 grand just connecting people, And so at the end of the day, it's a win-win for me. I don't mind, teaching some of the agents in our office, because at the end of the day, we all benefit, we all eat, we all make a little bit of money, and we're helping somebody else out too. And if we don't get it, someone else is going to get it. So that's the way I look at it. But it is definitely it's a business that I like, the off-market deals, because I'm not competing with everybody on the MLS.
Jared bought pizza, just disclosure. It should be here any minute now.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So in your experience, do you feel like clients are more likely to take the wholesale deal if they're closer to that foreclosure date versus listing on the MLS?
When it's closer to the foreclosure or the auction date, yes, they're more likely to take the cash deal, the wholesale deal. Sometimes also you got to understand, some people want to sell the property. They want their money. They want their funds. And then I'll allow them to stay in the property an extra 2-3 weeks, because they need to move on to the next city or the next property they're going to live in, and they need that money immediately. So sometimes people want money, the convenience of a cash deal, and they want to close in 5-7 days. And if we can facilitate that for them, I don't mind. I owned a property that I knew and actually Chris helped me sell it. It was one on Cody. We locked this one up at $250, and on that one, it had some structural issues. But it was funny because one of the agents in our office actually got the lead, and she's like, "I don't know what to do. Help me out." And when I walked the house, I was like, "Oh, tell her 250." She's like, "No, that's so offensive." I was like, "I'll tell her." So I told her, "Hey, we can do 250 for your house. I'll close in 5-7 days, and you can stay in the house for 30 days." And she was like, "What? Really? I'll have my money?" I was like, "Yeah, and I'll take you to Jefferson County, help you do all your probate paperwork." She's like, "Well, I got another wholesaler, another dude who says he can give me 270." I was like, I'm sure I was like, "Here's my proof of funds." I showed her my proof of funds. I was like, "I can get this deal done." And we sold that property, I think, for like $315. And then he brought in the buyer for it. He made like $8-9 grand. And so, we grossed about 50 grand on that deal, but I did have to hold on to the asset for 30 days. And sometimes you have to do deals like that because they want that convenience. They wanted that money.
I knocked on that door personally about 5 times, which I'm not really much of a door knocker because I'm so busy with my construction crews. But I know that door by heart, and she would never answer. She answered a postcard, I believe, because she went to the high school.
Oh, no. It was
something.
One of my agents' last name was similar to her daughter's best friend's last name or something. So she thought they were related, and I'm glad she thought they were related.
It was stupid.
Yeah, but I knocked on that door, and she didn't want nothing to do with me.
I never got.
And that's what I'm saying is, like, sometimes they don't want to talk to me. There's certain people that they won't want to talk to me. They won't want to talk to him. But a female comes in and, "Oh yes, here you go." Like, we have a deal right now that I believe that this guy, I door knocked it, left my flyer, but I think his wife just passed away. And one of the agents in our office, she's a female. She got the deal. And I think, he's probably lonely. He's probably sad, that his wife passed away, and he didn't want to talk to a guy. He wants to talk to a female, And so, and I get that. That happens a lot.
It's just dumb luck and timing.
Yeah.
Is the other half, really. And if you go door knock 50 doors like him every week, you're going to grab something once in a while. But it's not, my ratio is about 70, $75. It used to be easier, but the issue right now with the banking system is the banks don't send these people to foreclosure very easily because they don't want to have bad press. The banks started enforcing people not making their payments for a year and then sending them all to foreclosure the first time. Everybody's going to say, "Oh, Bank of America, Chase, there's terrible banks." It's going to be all over the news. So they keep that at a minimum. We're selling REOs, and I was selling for a larger bank at the end, Fannie Mae in Phoenix and in Denver. Their number one priority was to not have bad press. So when we would take over the assets, we would offer more cash for keys for people to vacate out of the house. And then we had, at one point, what the banks had to clean up and fix up their houses with their approved vendors. They didn't want to be Fannie Mae's on the news, and all they have is just shit real estate all over the nation. So the banking system, of my belief, the reason why there isn't more foreclosures is because we're kind of in this little pocket. We don't know which direction the market's going to go. Obviously, the feds are really controlling it with the rates. In my eyes, we don't know who's going to be president by the end of the year. So we're just kind of in this pocket. I'm always, unfortunately, looking for a downturn. I'm looking for 2008, 2009 one more time. I'm not 26 years old. I'm not an order taker for a bank or a hedge fund. I'm praying that I can go into a really bad real estate market, because then I can capitalize really well. I mean, I have plenty of money built up with money partners, and what I would do differently was I'd probably buy a handful of flips and wholesales to keep the liquidity moving, and then I would try to buy 2, 3, 4 rentals every single month if I can get them for a deep enough discount. You land at the end of a 2-year period 100 rentals. I'm like one step further of getting away out of this business, because I don't care. We got 20 grand of cash flow coming in every month. So anyway.
The other thing too is with the foreclosures, like another thing that you can do too is you can buy junior lien positions too. And so this is a little bit more advanced. I've done a few deals, big deals where I bought the junior lien position. And so typically, like, I'll tell you this quick one. We had a property that 2 of our agents were going after. It was a probate foreclosure. One of the mom had passed away. The daughter was living at the house. The brother didn't want to sign the probate paperwork. Eventually, it went to auction. What I did is I pulled out the O&E, and I saw that Pella Windows had installed some windows a few years back, and they put a mechanics lien against the property. So what did I do? I called Pella Windows lawyers, and I said, hey, that mechanics lien there for $12,000, let me buy it for you. I'll give you $12,500, and you can assign that lien over to my corporation. So I bought the lien. Someone bought the house at auction, at Denver auction, an investor. They bought it at auction for like $290 or $285, somewhere around there. And then they found out that I owned that lien and I was an investor and I was going to redeem my position. So in foreclosure, when you own the most junior lien position, you're actually in best position. And so what he did is he called me. He's like, hey, man, I'll give you $4,000 to walk away. I was like, you think I'm an idiot, man? I'm not going to walk away for $4,000. So eventually what happened on that deal is I redeemed my position. I bought him out. And after he sent his final number, he tallied in there like $10,000, $15,000 of extra fees, like security, relock keys, which he had done none of that. But the numbers were so good. I never went into the house. I just saw it from the outside. The ARV on that house was about $575,000, $600,000. And I was all in for about $315,000. So, I mean, those are the type of deals that you can find, and they're out there. But buying a junior lien position is another way that I kind of look at some of these deals. Another thing that I do too is sometimes when these properties go to auction, it goes back to the bank. I'm contacting the banks who now own the property. I'm trying to get the asset manager. I'm trying to get a decision maker. And now I have right now 2 REO accounts, which are bank-owned accounts. I work for a small bank up in Georgia. I'm being honest, they're a predatory lender. They basically, what they're doing is they find out people who are in distressed situations. They'll lend them $100,000, $150,000 for about a year. And then the client has to pay them off. And a lot of these people are going to foreclosure. And then when it goes back to the bank, I get those listings. And so there's another company that I'll share with you guys. I go with ResNet. They're an online company. Me and Chris talked about it. Last year, I paid $750 just to get on their system. I got 0 listings, but I got a few BPOs that I completed. This year in January, I had to pay another $750, and I was like, I don't know. But I was like, I did it. Well, I just got a listing from them. And so now in that listing, I have multiple offers on it. Yeah. And so I try to get them from the front. I try to get them from behind. But wherever I can get them, I'm going to take it. So, I mean, it's just, I'm persistent with it, So if I look at a deal and there's an opportunity, that's what I do.
And one phone call in the REO game, the asset manager game, if you make one phone call and talk to somebody, like I'll name it Kelvin in Irvine, California, who worked for Fannie Mae, if you got in a relationship with him, you could get 20 to 30 assets assigned to you within a week or within a month. It changes it overnight. So it's all about, like, if you know the right person, things change really quickly. I still don't have any motivation to go back to that. I rather just focus on my investment. But there's so many different, like, rings, short sale or funnels, short sales, REO, working for the banks, door knocking, being an investor. There's so many different spokes in an entire wheel.
Another thing you can also do is doing what everyone knows is called driving for dollars. But if you're actually going to do this, do it consistently. And this is where you can drive around distressed neighborhoods, write down all the addresses that look distressed, boarded up window, roof looks bad, a lot of trash in the front yard, cars parked in the front yard, a lot of things like that, and then write down those addresses, go back into, your systems and skip trace those numbers, and then start calling them, start texting them. We use another system called Scipio that's for text messaging, and it's not free. It's about $400 a month. Like I said, you have to use some money, play with some money to make some money, but we're able to send about 1,000 text messages a day, and so we download the numbers, we put them into a specific format on the spreadsheets, and then we send this blast text pretty much, and so we'll get a response here and there. And last week we got one lead. We were text messaging expired listings, and we ended up getting a property here in Denver. And on that one, long story short, I think we netted about $34,000 on that deal, and this is just from text messaging. Now tell me, if you got $400 times 12, you made it up already on one deal, one deal, and that's going different ways. So I mean, we're not just hitting the pre-foreclosure. I mean, we're hitting pre-foreclosure, we're hitting probate, we're doing driving for dollars. We're actually going into expireds too, looking for some of those old expireds and text messaging those. But it's work. But I'd rather do this than, to me, the way I look at it is like, if I gotta make 100,000 and drive buyers around, that's about 7, 8 closings, somewhere around there, 6, 7 closings. That's a lot of work, a lot of weekends. But I can do 1 or 2 deals, and I'm probably making that kind of money as well on doing this type of business.
Jared brought us pizza, bless his heart. It's in some room that looks like this. Anybody have any questions? I guess today's goal is just to show you that there's a different solar system of real estate that exists. It's not on the MLS, and it's not by some 20-year-old wholesaler telling you what a good deal or bad deal is. If you could go do it yourself, it makes it easier because you'll get a deeper deal. But I think that was my goal of the class, is just to kind of expose you to a different marketplace. But it does suck. It's hard work. It's not fun. People do yell at you and they cuss at you, but it's not as bad as you think it is either.
Yeah. And just be proactive. I feel like if you're proactive, you'll get a lot more opportunities come your way. One of the things that the first time I went to an appointment with Chris, I actually just kind of watched him, and the first thing that came out of my head was like, Chris has game. Like he really has game. Like he has off-market game. Like he knows how to sweet talk. He knows how to be funny. He knows how to be quirky with certain clients. And so he knows he's trying to get a way in. Mm-hmm. And that's what you have to do on these type of transactions. It's not all just serious. Like you can't go door knock, dressed super, super nice. When I door knock, I'm kind of dressed like this, sometimes with a hat, sometimes with shorts, sometimes with my Air Maxes, just because I want to be comfortable. And, you don't want to go dressed up like you're going to a business meeting, because then people get turned off. You want to be relatable to them. But, I think ultimately you have to be proactive. You have to put in the work, not be scared, and know that it's going to take time. If you don't want to invest 3 or 4 months, maybe a couple hours a week to this, then don't even try it, because it does take some work.
I approach it with 0 Fs. Like I walk to the door and do not care at all. There was a client I knew through Rumorville that if anybody buys this house at auction, he's gonna shoot the person that buys the house. I was like, that's a customer for me. Where is he at? So I went there with the guy who gave me the lead, and I knocked on the door. Within 5 seconds, I go, there's a rumor that if I buy your house at auction, you're gonna shoot me down in your yard. But if you're gonna do that, can we just mow down your whole neighborhood? And he busted out laughing. And then I had him, because I was a sarcastic opener. And about 30 seconds later, I was in his house, walking the house, building rapport. So I go, no filter, don't care. That's my approach. It's probably not as professional, but it gets them to talk. And I do like scan. Does he have a gun on him, or how crazy he really is? Is he tweaking out on meth? Whatever. I kind of like assess the situation, but he's just a grumpy old guy. And anyway, so that's my approach. I don't know how Cesar probably is a little bit more professional with a megastar shirt. But that works for me.
Yeah, and everyone, like I said, does things a little bit differently. And so if there's something that works for you, then that's great. Keep at it. I know that I have something that's been working for me. To me, it's all about a numbers game. It's all numbers to me. It's just what it comes down to. If I have a week where I'm doing, maybe 5-10 houses in that week, I know that it's a bad week and I'm not going to hit my quota, and I'm probably not going to get anything. But when I'm hitting my 50, 60 houses a week, I'm going to land something. I'm going to land something regardless. And, I don't do this all by myself. I do have people that help me out too. One of my team members is basically he told me yesterday that he's the best text messenger in the city. There's no one better than him. I was like, I love hearing that. I love hearing that because then that means that I have one of the best text messengers in the city. And, that's what he claims he is, So
Nice.
I'm glad. I want to hear stuff like that, and I think, I tell people when I'm in front of people's houses, I'm the best foreclosure realtor in the city. And I honestly believe that, and so that's the confidence that I have. And so if I can have the best door knocker, the best text messenger, and the best cold caller, we're going to land something as long as we're putting in the work.
Every week. Questions?
You ever door knock on the weekends?
I don't, because I have a wife and kids, so I can't do it as much. And she knows I'm a junkie. So when I get on a parlay, I was like, I want to go buy another house. She's like, no, you got to go to Olivia's soccer game. But yes, there's a lot of value in knocking on doors on Saturday because you know they're there.
Saturdays are good days to door knock. I also, because I got a wife and kids, I don't door knock on weekends. But last year I did door knock a few houses on the weekend, and I actually got 2 deals from door knocking on a Saturday.
Yes.
After I had gone to get ice cream with my daughter, I got a lead on a certain house that somebody's going to be home. I went to that house on a Saturday, woke him up because he was hungover. But I got the deal. Yeah, so evenings are good, Saturdays are good.
Yeah,
I probably may stay away from Sundays, but at the end of the day, I'll go early in the morning too. But it's more because of my family and my schedule that I don't door knock on evenings, which I think are the best times to door knock, evenings and Saturdays. But definitely do Saturdays. Yep. Sorry.
So if you go to a foreclosure and they don't answer, you leave your letter?
Oh, of course, yes. You always got to leave something.
But what if the person that's on the title doesn't pick up that flyer? Isn't that something that you're not supposed to do? Because maybe the husband doesn't
know,
the wife
or the tenant. Yeah.
So I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, you're basically spilling the beans of something that maybe they don't want them to find out, which I get, but I've never had an issue with that. Well, I did once, and it actually turned into a listing. I was cold calling. Actually, I was cold calling. What was the guy? Rico. This guy's name was Rico, and a little kid answered, and he was like a 4-year-old, and I was like, "Hey, is Rico there?" And he's like, "Oh, Uncle Rico." I was like, "Yeah, Uncle Rico." And he's like, "Oh, no, he's not here." Blah blah. And then some lady snatched the phone, and she was like, "Hey, who are you looking for?" I was like, "I'm looking for Rico." And she was like, "No, there's no Rico here," and blah 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 blah. What are you calling for? I was like, "Well, Rico is on the public trustee list, and blah 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 blah." I kind of spilled the beans, so she hung up. 3 minutes later, Rico Suave called me. He was pissed off because you know what? He hadn't told his wife that he was behind on the payments. And so he called me, "Who are you? What the hell are you doing calling my house, spilling the beans? I never told my wife that I was behind. And now she found out because of you." I was like, "Dude, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, but you know what? I'm just trying to help you out." He was, "I'm going to report you to 9 News. I'm going to do this." I was like, "You know what? Do what you got to do." I was like, because at the end of the day, I've helped out so many families. While you put something on Facebook negative about me, I'll just have people respond back that, "Hey, I've helped them out." So do what you got to do. And so my wife, who was with me at the office, she heard all this, and she comes in after he hung up with me, yelling at me. She was like, "Oh my God, Rico's so pissed off at you." I was like, "Oh yeah, he is." And she actually was doing my mail out, my direct mail, and she's like, "Should I send him direct mail?" I was like, "Yeah, send it to him. I don't care. Send it to him." 3 days later, I'm going to Sabor Latino, over there on Botanic Gardens. Rico Suave calls me, and he's like, "Hey, man, I just got your flyer, man. I got all these flyers from all these cash buyers, from all these investors, and you actually want to help me out, man." I was like, "Yeah, man, I do want to help you out, man." I was like, "Dude, just give me 15 minutes of your time. That's all I'm asking, 15 minutes, and then you can kick me out of your house." He's like, "All right, bro, come through." And, it turns out that I graduated in high school in 1996. I went to Colorado Academy. He went to Mullen High School. So as soon as I got to the house, I saw that he had his bats. He had a little Mullen bag. And so I'm the type of person that when I see something, I'm going to try to create some type of rapport. Like I said, you have to have game. Game, to me, is trying to figure out how you're going to be able to come and be presentable to this person, kind of have a relationship with this person, how he's going to be able to like you. So if this person is athletic, boom, I'm athletic. If this person likes, golfing and you like golfing, boom, then, you want to talk about that. But you have to have some type of game, and you have to be confident. And that's why I snatched up that deal. He was a headache. He was a head case because at the end of the day, I listed that property. I sold it, but he didn't want to fix anything. He didn't want to get the house clean. I had to hire a few people but the deal got done. But I always tell that story because you know what? Anybody else would have just quit right there, right? Sure. I didn't quit because you know what? I was like, there's still potential here. And, so I sent them the direct mail, and it still worked out. So, yeah, so sometimes when I'll hit a house, I'll leave my flyer. The second time that I hit that house, like 2, 3, 4 weeks later, I'm leaving a sticky note. I'm leaving ghetto style. I'm changing it up. And then, so I'm always changing things up because sometimes, you know, they might get tired of my colored flyer. And so then I leave a ghetto little sticky note, and it works too. So I change it up.
Your flyers, Cesar, are you putting that you're real estate agent / investor / wholesaler?
No, I'm disclosing that I'm a licensed real estate agent, and I'm just trying to give them their options. And then on some of the verbiage on my flyer, I do say, if you're interested in also selling your property in cash, I have that option for you. Okay, but mostly it's about trying to help them out, and all I need is a foot in the door. That's it.
Are you doing handwritten
On my sticky notes, yes.
Yeah.
on the mail?
On my mailer, so I do handwritten envelopes. Handwritten envelopes.
Okay.
That's what I do. Handwritten envelopes.
And then the actual note inside.
Yeah, that's printed out because I can't write that, man. It'd take me forever.
You could, like, I saw one where you have a clear envelope, so you can see inside the envelope, and you could put a dollar bill inside of it. So when you send it to them, they get a dollar bill. If you're targeting, like, if you knock 50 doors and you got 10 hoarding houses, like there's cats, there's meth needles in the yard, and there's 20 cars, you take those 10, send them all a dollar bill. If they call you, whatever. I mean, I door knocked a house in Denver, and she's a hoarder. You can just tell by the smell of it, and the cat that comes out and visits me every time. And she would never answer the door. And I'm at number 4 at her door. And then Uber Eats showed up. And there's no cars in the driveway. So I don't think she's in there. And I'm hitting the side of the window. You know, I don't care if they come out pissed off. So Uber Eats showed up, and she answered the door, and they exchanged the food. So what did I do? The next day, I went and got an Uber Eats gift card for $15 and wrote a new handwritten note with the gift card and said, I'd like to talk to you about your options. And I enclosed that Uber Eats gift card. She hasn't called me. But then I went there a 6th time last Friday, and she answered. I brought somebody that was a woman that was saying, hey, Mary, I'm here to help you. She came to the door because of the woman. And now we're working with her. So you got, like Cesar said, you got to go down the rabbit hole like 15 times. Don't stop at 1 or 2.
Yes.
If you knocked it, she didn't come out, and so you had your lady partner
Yes.
call out to her.
Yes, and knock. Okay. And she didn't even take the bait on the Uber Eats gift card. I'm like, I'm the guy. She starts talking, and I interrupt. I'm the guy that gave you that Uber Eats gift card. And she's like, oh, okay. And then I
or like if you can get a telephone number from a neighbor, like score, man. You score.
Yes,
time,
you get intel
like,
from neighbors.
If you door knock on the house and they're not there, but you see that the neighbor's outside having a drink or whatnot, go and start a conversation with the neighbor. Mm-hmm. And then smooth your way into, hey, so by any chance, do you got their number? Oh, yeah, I got them. Oh, thank you very much. Boom, 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 boom. And I did 2 deals like that last year, you know, by getting the telephone number from the neighbor. Like the neighbor sometimes will help you out, you know, but just be proactive, be aggressive.
They helped Ray on that deal on Dale. They told him what nursing home this old man is at. Ray drove to the nursing home and took the house and his bowl of soup, in my eyes. Question? Do you have a question? No? Okay. Are we good on questions? Jared, pizza time?
Pizza outside, you're hungry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. We got a clap.
Yeah.